Everything you've been told about getting listings is wrong. You don't need to make cold calls, you don't need to call expired listings, and you don't need to spend thousands a month on online or Zillow leads. Carla Cedillos built a dominant listing-based business on one platform, Facebook, for free with organic posts. And she runs every single listing appointment on Zoom, which is how she takes 3 times more appointments than any other agent in her market. So in this video, she's gonna break down the exact posts she used to attract sellers on social media, the Zoom system that she used to dominate her calendar, and she's gonna walk through how she transitioned from a buyer side business to a listing focused business. And the best part is, anybody can do this. Now, 2 quick things before getting started. Number 1, I will link Carla's content below so that you can see exactly what we're talking about and the type of posts that she makes that actually generate seller leads for free on social media, not buyer leads. And number 2, I will link her calendar below in case you'd like to have a chat with her one-on-one about getting her help for free, including mine, in order to take your business to a completely different level with clients coming directly to you using social media. So without further ado, let's bring on Carla and talk all things social media lead generation for real estate agents. But the best part is, all of these leads are sellers and listings. All right, Carla, so super excited to have you back on here for a second time, and a lot has changed. You know, I'm gonna link the previous video that we did below because I think that's still super valuable, but your business has evolved and you guys have gone from doing well to doing exceptional over the last couple of years. So for anybody that maybe hasn't seen that previous interview, I'd love for you to just give yourself a quick introduction of who you are, where you're from, and what your business has looked like as you've evolved over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be back. And yeah, our business has definitely taken a turn. And we are, we're in Texas. So we've done quite a bit of business here, but we're not originally from Texas. So we came out from California, started real estate. We also homeschool. So that takes a lot of time. But basically, we just jumped right into real estate, got partnered with you, did all the things that we knew we had to do, and just rolled with it. We've been able to pretty much build our business from the ground up and, no longer chasing leads. We are more just, they come to us because they know us and trust us. So a lot has changed and it's all been good.
Yeah, it's been amazing, and especially and why I'm so excited for this conversation is most people assume that the only leads you're going to generate on social media are buyers. And you've been able to build a seller listing focused business, which is like the dream of every agent, which is clients come to them and their listings, right?
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about, you know, the journey to get there in the sense of where did you start? Like, how was your business in the beginning? But how did you make that switch over to a more listing focused business?
Yeah. So I originally started when I jumped into real estate, I started with a brick and mortar. And it was just, there was no help. So all I heard all day was listings is the name of the game, but I had no idea how to get them. Nobody was helping. So then I just kind of was like, okay, well, what can I do? Social media. I hate door knocking. I hate cold calling. I'm not going to do any of that. So social media, I knew I was good at. So I just started doing that, and it was consistency. So once we saw your channel, we were like, you know what are we doing at a brick and mortar? Like, let's just jump in. And so we partnered with you and saw all of the different classes. So we started just kind of doing the steps. And I knew it had to be in listings because I didn't want to go out for 5, 6 hours a day and show one buyer that might partner up with you, might not, might end up wanting to rent at the end of the day. So I knew listings is where it was at. And then I just focused on providing good information for them. I never asked for the business. My sole purpose was simply to just give them good information so that they would begin to trust me.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the name of the game, which is building, the know, like, and trust factor. But it's really funny because I think every agent with a license knows that, but they don't actually practice it. And,
Yeah.
if you look at their social media profiles, it's all just me, 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 me. And here's
Yeah.
what I'm doing, and here's my business. But you've done very well with like stories and being able to share like what's in it for them. And that's always kind of the litmus test that I use is if I'm going to put out a piece of content, I need to think from the viewer's perspective of why should they care? And so
Yep.
I'd love for you to kind of unpack your social media strategy because you're using a platform that most, quite frankly, ignore. But anybody that I've seen actually double down on it has done exceptionally well. So, what platform are you focusing on, and what does your strategy look like for content?
So I focus on Facebook. And I know like shorts and all of that, but I just really know Facebook, so I focus on it and it's all organic. I don't do any paid ads. And so what I've done is I've built a several different groups within Facebook of different neighborhoods that are in my area. And so I know these neighborhoods inside and out. I post every single week about how the market is doing in those specific neighborhoods. So when people call me, they know I'm the expert in that neighborhood because I'm not trying to sell Dallas. I'm not trying to sell, miles and miles away from where I'm at. I focus on my area and I just, I'm super consistent.
And so, with that, let's dive a little bit deeper. So, first, I'd love for you to kind of share like some of the nuances of why you believe your posts actually generate leads because there's a lot of people that will have a presence on Facebook and they'll post on there, but it's very generic content. And again, it kind of goes back to like why should I care? So, what is your kind of deeper content strategy in order to actually get leads? And then what are you doing to stay consistent? Because that's what pretty much every agent struggles with that I see.
Yeah. So what I do is I post market reports and it's very simple. It's just like specifically on that neighborhood. So I'm giving them value. So even though they're not going to call me right away, they're not thinking about selling their house right away, they're keeping up to date with the market. So by the time that they do decide to sell, they know me, they trust me, and they just pick up the phone and call me. And they're like, hey, I see your posts everywhere. So I know you know the area very well. Can we, meet up? I want to go ahead and sell my house. So a lot of the people that are already reaching out to me, they're not even interviewing other agents. They know me so well from what I post that they're like, I'm not talking to anybody else because you're the expert in the area. And then I just make sure that no matter what happens, come hell or high water, I am posting every single Monday because that is like my bread and butter to my business.
Definitely. And with that, so we've got market reports, and then I've also seen you post incredible content about actually getting the job done. And I think that's important because I know that we need to have this blend between value and also stories and personal in the kind of this plethora of content. But, every week when I open up Facebook, which is, pretty much once on a weekly basis, I see your posts of like closing 5 deals and all this stuff under contract and like proving that you guys are getting the job done. Do you want to kind of just explain your strategy there of showing proof of actually helping people?
Yeah. So something that's really big for us, and I tell everybody when I meet up with them, is I will hunt you down if I don't get a Google review. So you are going to give us a
Yes.
review at the end of the day. But I just let them know, like, hey, your house is going to be shown across multiple platforms on social media. And so that's what I'm working on. And then once it's done, I make sure to get that same content and post it across because that's letting other people know what I am doing, so making sure that their house is getting sold and never over promising and under delivering keeps, our group just very legit where they're like, yeah, you know what you're doing. I trust you versus an agent that's going to come in and just tell them what they want to hear. We often get those calls where they're like, hey, this agent promised they can sell it here. And I'm like, I know this area. They can't. So then they call me back and they're like, oh, yeah, they couldn't. So can you help me now? So
Yeah,
it's just,
it's funny
yeah, go
because
ahead.
I had experience with that as well. It's especially in kind of, markets that are contracting or getting a little bit tougher is agents are so desperate that they're gonna tell the seller everything that they wanna
Yep.
hear, and then just to get the listing, so they're pretty much buying the listing, and then they can't
Yep.
deliver, and because they know that we actually follow through with our promises, right, the majority of my listings that sold were from agents who didn't get the job done, and so
Mhm.
Well, there's two things I want to unpack before getting to your kind of Zoom strategy because I think this is an absolute game changer. But the first thing is, why do you think so many sellers reach out to you from your content? Because again, the misconception is that the only clients you're going to get from social are buyers that usually are renters, and then you're chasing them. But you've been able to put out the right content to attract the right avatar. Why do you think that is?
So I'm very specific about the content that I put out. I don't do a ton of buyer content. My focus is on sellers. So I'm giving them like, hey, tips on like how to sell your house. Whether or not they're using me, I'll let them know what the market is doing, how rates are going, how that's impacting the market in our area. Because I am in a very saturated area where there's lots of inventory. We've got new builds, we've got traffic, we've got construction. So letting them know all of these things is what I think lets them, really get to know me and trust me. So by the time they come to me, they're ready to list versus buyers. Because, the game is listings. If you've got the listings, you've got pretty much the market. So even other agents are now coming to me and saying, hey, I see you everywhere. Can we sit down and have coffee? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't want to give out my information for free, but so it's just one of those things where it's like they are constantly seeing my stuff. So whether I'm posting about houses being sold, what the market is doing, even like things like homeschooling and stuff, they get to know me through my posts.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, we always talk about, especially when we talk, kind of dive into content strategies, you're going to get what you put out there. And so many agents are wondering why they're not getting listings, but all their content is, created for relocation and buyers. But
Mhm.
it's also a commitment to the long game because it does take a little bit longer to get sellers, but once that kind of floodgate opens, then that's what you're going to continue to get. But many people won't commit long enough to actually say, I'm going to post this until I get listings. But before getting into Google reviews, because I think this is incredibly important, and I saw how many you guys have, and it's insane. Um, but talk a little bit about that personal side to build the connection because you talked about homeschooling and, I've been able to follow the journey of you and your husband, and very few are kind of able to crack that code of how to have a beautiful balance between real estate content and personal content. So, what does that look like for you in order to weave that into your content strategy?
Yeah. So it's just managing our time wisely because I still do have to homeschool. So it is, prioritizing my non negotiables that I know are going to bring me the production and the business that I need. And then everything else just kind of goes around that. So kids know, there's certain times that we have to work. That's non negotiable, but there's going to be, free time as well. So we're just trying to be really intentional with our time, especially because our kids are still, 11 and 13. So I know they're going to be gone shortly. And I want to, just kind of spend as much time with them as possible. But also, we have to run a business. So it's just being able to manage our time really wisely and prioritize.
For sure. And on a weekly basis, because you mentioned consistency, and I've seen you guys be consistent throughout the entire process. Do you have like a dedicated day to say, okay, this is when I have to do our content, this is when we're doing the market reports? Or what does it look like in terms of a weekly routine to be able to put that out every single week and stay on top of it?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I actually have a calendar that I stick to. So I know that Monday I am posting this exact content, which is my market report. And then Tuesday, so I'm part of different Facebook groups and they all have their rules. So I add to my calendar when I can post on which groups. So
Yeah.
that way I stay consistent and I'm not breaking their rules and getting kicked off these different groups. So I'm staying consistent just with my calendar.
Yeah. And I think that's an important lesson for a lot of people because I hear people that are like, okay, I see these Facebook groups and they're just going to go in and spam the heck out of it. And then they immediately get blocked, they get kicked out,
Yeah.
and they're all sad about it. But they all have rules and it's
Yeah.
usually pinned at the top of the Facebook group. So I encourage people to actually read it and follow it because I've been kicked out of them when I was back in production. So I get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, with that being said, let's talk about Google reviews. because this is not only heavily underutilized by a lot of agents, but when you look at getting recommended by AI, when you look at getting recommended by Google search in general, it carries some of the heaviest weight in terms of those recommendations. And I'd love to know what that process is like for you because I know agents that have done hundreds of deals and they have
Mhm.
17 Google reviews. And
Mhm.
I'm like, you're leaving so much opportunity and organic ranking authority on the table. So, how did you bake that into your process? And what's kind of your strategy there to be able to make sure that you're consistently getting them?
So I learned from the very beginning that Google was just going to be a thing. So even, 5, 6 years ago when we started the business, everybody was talking about, like make sure they're giving you reviews on Zillow. And I was like, yeah, well, no, let's go to Google because that's what I personally use to go see like if we want to go out to eat or something. I'm utilizing Google reviews to see where we're going to go. So from the very beginning, I started using Google and now like it's a conversation that I have with our clients from the beginning is you will give me a Google review and I will text you every single day until I get that Google review. And they'll laugh about it, but I mean, I'm dead serious. Like I will text them nonstop until they give me a Google review. And anything less than 5 stars, I'm calling them and I'm like, what did we do wrong? Like, how can I, improve? But luckily, we've never had anybody give us less than 5 stars. And I just, I'm super authentic with them. And I'm like, Google shows that, I'm doing a good job for my clients. So it does mean a lot to us.
Yeah, and I think a lot of agents have a tendency to have a really weird perspective toward this, and I almost think that it stems from imposter syndrome, where
Hmm.
they're either so fearful of, like, 1 or 2 things, not getting the five-star review, or, like, what I hear all the time, "I don't want to annoy my clients," and
Yeah.
so they don't do it, but what they have to realize is, like, you're actually running a legit business here as a real estate agent, and these help so much. It's just like you said it perfectly, which is, even when I moved down to Miami, the first thing that I do when I'm looking for restaurants is I look up a specific type of restaurant, I look at what has the most highest reviews, and then
Hmm.
I usually go to that restaurant.
Hmm.
And if a business had thousands of customers, but 5 reviews, like, I'm
Yeah.
genuinely just not checking it out, and it could be the best restaurant in the entire city.
Yeah.
And that's where, we act as people in one way, but as realtors, they have a tendency to act in a completely different way, like, you're doing a disservice to do all this hard work and then not get the review that actually
Right.
helps your business so
Right.
people can find you in the future, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, and I bring it up from the beginning. And, although we're jokingly about it, where I'm like, I will hunt you down. Yeah, I don't let up. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm like, worst case thing, worst scenario they can give me is be like, I'm not going to give you a review. But usually all my clients are super happy with what we do. So I'm like jokingly like, hey, I know I've bugged you before, but can you just get me that review? And so I'm super nice about it, but I will text them every day.
Yeah. And I think there's also a little element to it of almost forcing you to deliver as well. Because if
Hmm.
you know, and you've been harping on this and you set the expectations from day
Yeah.
one, but then you go have terrible communication, you don't deliver, and you know that review's coming because you brought it up, that can also give you a little bit of pressure to actually deliver on your promises and follow through with those
Yeah.
commitments. So I love that. And I think it's something that, I used to make it very easy for my clients where I literally had an email that would go out and I would say, here's the exact link, click on it, write your
Mhm.
review. If you need a little bit of an outline, you can include some of these words and just
Mhm.
take 2 seconds. And
Yep.
it made a world of a difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does.
So let's talk about, well, before getting into the Zoom side of things, because I think this is going to be a massive golden nugget for people. How are leads connecting with you? Because this is one of the questions I get from pretty much every person when they start their content journey and they say, well, should I put my phone number? Should I put my email? Should I put my website? Where should I put it? How are they going to reach out? So
Mhm.
from post to actual conversation and booked appointment, what does that journey typically look like for you?
So, I make sure to have my phone number on absolutely everything because my phone is, I'm not always in front of the computer. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is through text. So I make sure to have my phone number on absolutely everything. Every single post has a call to action. So from there, people are usually texting me or they're going directly through Facebook Messenger. So
Mhm.
those are the two biggest ways to get a hold of me from the people that I'm trying to target. So once they text me, we have a quick conversation. I just ask them a couple of questions like, hey, do you want to jump on a call? Is text better? Text is better for a lot of people. So we'll just have a full on conversation through text. And then when they're ready to meet, I send them a link.
And for that link, is that kind of like, to book into your calendar, or what does that look like?
Mhm. So that link is gonna be a Calendly link, and I set expectations from the get-go. They know our group, and they usually are ready to list by the time they meet with me. So, I just let them know the first step is jumping on a Zoom call, asking a couple questions, getting to know each other, making sure we're a good fit for each other, and, I explain the process on that Zoom call.
Yeah, so let's get into that because when we talk about imposter syndrome and fears that agents have, this is one of the biggest ones. And now, we have other people in our group that have been able to build these kind of remote businesses, if you will. But I like to call them high leverage businesses because it's
Mhm.
valuing your time and being able to get more done in a fraction of that time by creating scale. And so, one of the biggest fears is I have to meet them in person. I have to be face to face. And that's what we've been taught for the last 30 years in real estate.
Yeah.
And you're doing it differently. So let's walk through what that looks like for you and how you're actually conducting listing appointments on Zoom.
Yeah. So I used to do them in person and then things got really crazy. And I was like, my time is just, by the time you get to the client's house, it's like an hour drive there, drive back. And then, depending on how chatty they are, it's like 1 or 2 hours. So I was spending anywhere from 2 to 3 hours just meeting up. And it was just not the way that I wanted to run our business. So, I started incorporating Zoom, and yeah, there was definitely that fear at first of how are people gonna take it? Are they gonna think that I'm not serious about it because I'm not physically walking their house? And I'm not gonna lie, like, there is a little bit of pushback from some people, kind of the older generation doesn't really do the Zoom thing. So, I will pivot when I need to, but
Mhm.
most of them are very on board with it. They know that's the way that our entire society is going, so it's all AI, Zoom, like, it's all digital now. So, um, basically, I just make sure to set the expectations from the get-go and let them know, like, "Hey, this Zoom call is actually really good because you're hiring me for the skills that I have, not necessarily because 'cause I'm gonna go walk your house. So you want me for the skills that I have, and this is a great way to get to know me and allow me to show you what all I'm gonna do for you." So people are okay with it because I really do just lay out everything very clearly from the get-go.
Yeah, and so there's a lot to kind of unpack here. So, first thing that you said, and I think it's really important for people to take note of this, is whenever you're making a transition in your business or doing something a little unorthodox or different, you still have to remain flexible and agile. Because anytime I've, worked with people and I talk about whether it's calendar blocking or something, and I'm like, you should block off this amount of time, then their immediate rebuttal is, well, what if a client flies in and has to do $1 million listing that day? Well, you do the $1 million listing that day.
Right.
Like, let's be logical here. But you want to kind of maintain as much control as possible while being agile and being able to pour into people the way that they want to be poured into. So I think that concept is really important, is at least remaining somewhat flexible
Yeah.
and while also, actually giving this a fair shot. But the one thing, and I know people who are listening are going to think about this, which is, well, how do you do a proper listing presentation if you don't see their house, right? What if there's, skeletons in the basement? What if there's holes all over the bedroom? Like, what
Yeah.
happens there? How do you win
Yeah.
a listing and give a fair price without seeing every corner of it?
Yeah. So that is interesting because I've had to figure out ways around this. I can now do though like 3 listing appointments in 1 day, which is something that I couldn't do before. So basically my listing conversation is anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour. I explain how we're going to market their home, and I explain that I'm actually going to have a listing walkthrough partner come in. So I am never walking the house. My listing walkthrough partner has a very unique um, like game plan on how she's supposed to walk the house and get me back all the information. So by the time that I meet with them, I've already ran comps. I know the area so well because everybody usually that I'm working with is in my neighborhoods or within my, 5-mile radius. So I know the neighborhoods, the houses, the builders. I know everything super well. So I just let them know like, "Hey, this is a price I'm thinking. Do you have any significant upgrades?" And that's also something that I'm asking beforehand on that questionnaire that I send them once they do the Zoom. Like once they book it, I'm sending out a questionnaire. So then we're talking about it. Like, "Okay, do you have a pool? Do you have this?" Cuz price can change. And so I give them like a, just like I don't know,
A range.
a range of what it could be, and obviously, I'm not like $50,000 off because then they would be like, "Well, what are you doing?" So, usually I'm within like $10,000. I'm like, "Let me walk the house, let my team walk the house, and then I can narrow down exactly the price after I look at your upgrades." Because a lot of sellers will be like, "I have a lot of upgrades." Yes, but they're builder upgrades that all the other houses have, so they're not really upgrades if we all have them.
Yeah.
So it's things like that you have to walk through, but usually it's, my partner coming in, taking pictures, taking video, getting all that information back to me so that I can be really dialed into the house, the floor plan, and I can let them know, "Hey, this is what I think we should come in at."
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And I think, with anything, whether it's, listings or buyers or content or whatever, you're either going to spend more time on the front end or the back end. And so for most agents, they're spending the majority of the time on the back end, which is they do pretty mediocre preparation before a listing presentation, and they
Mhm.
rely on the listing presentation in order to do all the heavy lifting, which is the walkthrough, the conversations, everything. But what it sounds like is you're just moving that heavy lifting to the front end and saying, I'm going to become an expert in these communities. I'm going to know everything inside and out. I'm going to set expectations properly. I'm going to, become familiar with what's working and what's not. I'm going to do all
Mhm.
this first so that the listing presentation is actually a lighter load. Does that sound kind of accurate?
Yeah, that's exactly what we do because I know everything I need to know about the house. So unless they've got something super unique, like, I've got a client that has a pool with a sunken fire pit. For things like that, then I am getting a little bit more dialed in after the walkthrough. But other than that, I know the same houses, the neighborhoods are very cookie cutter style. So I know everything about the house before I'm even meeting with them. So unless they have something unique that I'm like, okay, let me do a little bit more research. And usually they're not like mad about it or they're like, well, how dare you not come into my house and look at it? They understand the process and they know me, they trust me. So they're like, okay, if this is what you're saying, then you must know what you're doing.
Yeah, and there's two really important things I want to unpack here, which is brand and this listing showing agent. So let's
Hmm.
start with brand. I think this is so important because what you've done is you've actually built that brand and done all this consistent heavy lifting on the front end again to the point where oftentimes, as you mentioned in the beginning, they either A, just know they want to work with you. So, like, they trust you. This is your process. They've seen, again, like we talked about, all of the success stories of you achieving the desired outcomes people have.
Hmm.
And you've just allowed people to build that connection with you through having such a strong presence. Like, I think that there's going to be agents saying, well, I want to run this type of business today, but they've got no brand, they post no content, they have no familiarity. Well, you're probably going to struggle to be able to convince a seller to be able to just do everything virtually without
Yeah.
any sort of front end brand and trust building. So, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about that, about how the content and all of that effort before you see results actually lends itself to you being able to even run a business like this?
Yeah. So I just make sure that every piece of content that I'm posting is going to be something that I would want to see if I was selling. or if I'm in the neighborhood, I'm very cautious about everything that I post. So I make sure that I don't get into political debates. I see so many agents that are just like, like
Oh yeah.
everything out there. And so I'm super cautious about the content that I post. If it's mostly all real estate related, I do a lot of family posting because we do cater to a lot of families. So I stay super relational and where, it's easy for them to be like, okay, I connect with you. So pretty much like YouTube videos, they're watching you, they're connecting with you. I just do it through social media, through a lot of stories, shorts, posts. Even when I have a hard day, I'm posting that on there. Hey, like real estate isn't all what it's cracked up to be on TV. Like we do have hard days. So they are seeing all of that and they know I'm real. Like I'm not just posting just strictly real estate related where I seem kind of salesy. I'm
Hmm.
just like, this is what we do. This is, real estate. We live it, we breathe it. My kids know it. Like they can talk to you about contracts. So they know that we're in it for the long run. And that's, I'm just super cautious about what we post.
Yeah, I agree, and especially in the landscape that we're in right now, I see a lot of agents in both Canada and the US posting very polarizing things, and everybody has free speech, everybody has free will, but just be aware that that
Hmm.
will impact your business. And
Yep.
so as long as you're cool with that, by all means do it, but it's not
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do. And I
Right.
think it's important to be aware of that because we're at a sensitive time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are extra sensitive in the society that we're in today. So I think it's important to be
Yes.
mindful of that. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Now,
Yeah.
the listing showing agent. So you can be as open or vague as you would like to be with this question, but I know that it's going to be what people are thinking, um, which is usually twofold. Number one, how did you find this person to be able to trust them and be able to, put faith in them? But
Mhm.
number 2, which again, feel free to be, however you want, what does the compensation look like for somebody like that? Because I know some people that have a ton of buyer's agents and they have a really unique compensation structure with them. But many people are going to wonder, well, do I give them 50%? Do I give them 20%? Like, what the heck does that look like in order to create that leverage of their business?
Yeah. So, going back to how I find them, I know several agents in the area. So one of like my requirements is they have to be with our brokerage. Um, So I need to know them. I look at their social media to make sure that what they're posting aligns with my brand because when they're out there doing these walks, they're representing me and my company. So, I make sure that I'm very clear with them from the beginning too is you're representing me and this is how I function, so I need you to function how I function.
Mhm.
And I've had really really good agents. So I've got like two full-time agents that are doing all of this for me. I trust them, I know them, I really watch their social media, so I know that they're professional, and I do meet with them in person, so I wanna make sure that they're not just telling me, like, "Hey, I am professional," and their social media because they could have more than one social media and give me, like, the
Yeah.
professional one. But it's people that I've known throughout the years that I'm like, "Hey, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm starting, do you wanna join me?" And they've been on board. As far as the compensation goes, I give them a split from my commission. So whatever my commission is, they are taking depending on how much work they're doing, they're taking anywhere from like 3 to 10% of whatever my commission is. So it's all going to depend on how much work they're going to be doing for that particular listing. Sometimes it's super easy. They're just doing one walkthrough. Other times they're having to go back to make sure that they're prepped for pictures. So it just varies depending on the load of work.
Yeah, definitely, and would they be the same ones doing, for example, like an open house if that's required by the seller?
Usually, I do have a group of agents that I stick to when I do my open houses, but
Yeah.
our team, with EXP, we're just so big that there's always people that are like reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I'm a new agent with EXP. Can I do an open house?" Of course, I let them know, "Hey, this is the brand that you're representing. Can you agree to all of this?" And if they do, and I see they do a good job, then I keep them on my phone to, for future open houses.
Yeah, that's it's such an important message, and I rarely hear people talk about this, but I harp on it a lot as well, which is that every single person that is associated with you is an extension of you.
Mhm.
And, you know, even if you've got a clean, polished brand and you're representing yourself one way, as soon as the sellers hear or buyers hear that they're going to be working with this man or woman, you better believe they're going to be looking them up too to be like, who the heck is actually coming to my house? And it's
Yeah.
funny because this a bit of a random tangent, but I think it aligns, which is my when I was in production, my videographer and photographer, I was representing all these luxury properties anywhere from $1,000,000 to $15,000,000, and my videographer and photographer was like a streetwear guy. So he was like tatted head to toe, big gauge earrings, and it was funny because my clients are so clean cut and polished, and he would go over there and they would text me when he's at the house and be like, "Who the heck did you send over here?" And I was like, "Just check out this guy's profile." And they would see it, and he was so polished in his profile, his quality was so high that it immediately gave them trust. And they're like, "Wow,
Mhm.
this is radically different than what I thought."
Mhm.
Because everybody's gonna make judgments. And so I think
Right.
having that clean profile, because I'm sure you've seen it too. There's a lot of agents, and you go to their profile and they're partying and drinking and doing all this crazy stuff. And you're like, yeah, that's
Mhm.
not an extension of me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a quick no. Mhm.
100%. Well, as you've gone on this journey, one of the things that I'd love to ask is transitioning from buyers to sellers. If somebody was running either a buyer heavy business today, or B, they just have no business today, which is about 70% of the industry. What would your best piece of advice be? And you can have a couple things or whatever you want to share, but like if somebody was looking to make this transition to have a more scalable business, and I've seen you go from having your little business with your husband to now building a successful team, what kind of advice do you have for people to get started on that journey who are maybe struggling?
Yeah. Something that I come across a lot is, and like with agents reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, I see what you're doing in the neighborhood. I see, your business growing. Can you meet with me? Can we talk about it?" And I'm always happy to meet with them and talk, but I often find that a lot of agents are just looking for a handout. So
Yeah.
they'll come to me and they'll say, "Hey, you know what? Can I join the team? I have this brokerage that's taking 50% of my commission, but they give me leads." And we just don't operate that way. I don't believe that anybody should be taking your hard earned money. So with us, it's very much like I will teach you how to fish versus I'm going to give you a fish. So we just, my goal is to help them, and just really the best piece of advice that I could do is stay consistent, because I see it all the time where they're ready and they're eager, and then you give them the list of things that they need to do and they're like, "Ah, no, I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'll just keep getting leads from this brokerage, and I'll keep giving them 50% of my commission." And I'm like, "Then you really don't want to grow." So, that just consistency and time management, because as long as you're consistent with the same thing, it is like it's not a magic pill. There's no magic here. It's literally all it is.
Yeah. And it's so true. And I think it's pretty mind blowing that this is still so overrated by some people, and they still don't take it seriously, which is like we have probably the highest amount of success stories when it comes to agents using social to generate business in probably not just any brokerage, or not just ours, but any brokerage. And every single person I see doing well does not have a big following, does not have sexy content, does not have a full team behind. Like they have just eliminated every excuse. They put out average content consistently that is very genuine, very vulnerable, very transparent, and very relatable. And
Mhm.
there's people that are, you know, have 200 subscribers, they're doing six figures a month. And people with, 3,000 followers on Instagram, six figures a month. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy, but they're just present and they're real. And I think that's so important for people.
Yeah. Yeah. People wanna know that you're just like them, that you're not. Sometimes they'll be like, "Well, you've got it all. together and you figured it out. I'm like, I really didn't. And I'm still figuring out as we go because obviously, as we grow, I need to pivot and I need to change systems. But it's consistency and just, really knowing that you can do it versus just grabbing a handout to just being like, I'm just going to go all in no matter what that looks like. And it's going to be messy, but it's going to be mine and I'm going to be consistent. So it's just mentality, perspective.
Completely agree. And that's the number one reason why agents fail is mindset. So, the last questions we always like to ask is, you alluded to the fact that in the beginning you were at a traditional brick and mortar brokerage. What made you transition over to EXP in our group? And most importantly, for people that can click the link in the description, book a call with you and chat about getting your help and support as well as mine for free to scale, what can people expect when partnering with you to take their business to the next level?
Yeah. So back when I started, the brick and mortar sounded so good because I was like, okay, I'm going to get to learn from other people. I'm going to see, how they do real estate. And I was there for 2 years and I learned very, very little. I mean, they were taking a giant chunk of my commission. I was never going to cap. Um, And it was just like the top producers are never gonna tell you what they're doing because
Yeah.
you are competition to them. And so I just saw all of that, and then I saw the fees that I was paying, and we came across your channel. And I was like, "Oh, this is remote. I don't have to drive anywhere. That's amazing." So we just jumped on board. We were just like, "What do we have to lose?" And it actually took a whole turn. So, doing all of the courses, all of the training, and following it step by step. And I mean, we probably didn't even get through all of it because business just started rolling in. Um, but it just looked completely different where we've got an upline that is looking out for our best interests. There's all the trainings, obviously, like they want to help us. And this is what I tell people that partner with us is I want to help you. My goal is, to help you. It's never to keep what I'm doing away from you. So, yeah, it's just been partnering up with the right people that want you to be successful versus looking at you as competition has been really, really a game changer for us. Um, so yeah, we just, we love partnering up with people, and the fact that it's remote really is such an advantage where I'm not wasting time driving to an office, sitting there, not doing anything productive because honestly, I didn't do anything productive while I was at the office.
Yeah.
So it's really just sitting there with other unproductive people and, it just didn't work for us. Now, I get that that's not for everybody. I've had agents that are like, I need to be around people. Usually, though, those agents are, again, the ones that are like, just give me leads.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, and it's funny because we even had a guy who was really good in our group, and he left last year because he was like, "Oh, I need to be around people." He's already come back because
Hmm.
he was like, "Wow, I didn't realize what I had access to until I left," and also, as you alluded to, like, I think this is such an interesting perspective because I experienced this when we had the nicest office in my entire city is you have this perspective of like, oh, you're going to go to the office and you're going to share all this incredible information and all the top producers are going to be there just ready to mentor you and hand out all their best strategies. And it's like, yeah, the reality is all the top producers are out doing business, so they're
Yeah.
not going to the office, and if they are, it's in, out for an appointment, gone. So the only ones there are the ones sitting around twiddling their thumbs, complaining about how difficult life is. So if you're the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with, and you're around 5 complainers, guess what you're gonna become?
Yeah.
And, it's so powerful to see that I always like to say the most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind. And being able to have these open conversations with somebody like you, like now you're not able to only learn from somebody that is in the trenches doing it now at the highest level. But what I love about this opportunity is, you being in Texas, well, you're now able to learn from some of the top producers that are in Florida, in Seattle, in, Toronto, all these different markets and say, what's working for them? Well, let me
Hmm.
just bring that to my market because nobody's doing that here. And I think it's
Yep.
so powerful to see. And so, with that being said, Carla, I just wanted to say a huge thank you again for sharing everything that you're doing and the incredible success that you had. And again, Guys, click that link in the description, right? Have an open conversation, see if it's the right fit. If it's not, that's okay, but at least explore that opportunity so that you can have people that genuinely have a vested interest in helping take your business to the next level. So again, Carla, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, click that link in the description or pinned comment, and hopefully we can welcome you to our record-breaking group.